وكذب بالحسنى فسنيسره للعسرى وما يغني عنه ماله إذا تردى. By the enshrouding night, by the radiant day, by his creation of male and female, the ways you take differ greatly. Here I just want to say the Study Qur'an translation, because inna sa'yakum lashatta, truly your endeavors are diverse. And we'll go to through each Arabic word in this ayah when we come to it, inshallah. Truly your endeavors are diverse. They're different. As for one who gives, who is mindful of God, who testifies to goodness. So I just want to, as for one who gives and is reverent and attests to what is most beautiful, we shall ease his way unto ease, or we shall smooth his way towards ease. And as for the one who is miserly and deems himself beyond need and denies what is most beautiful, we shall ease his way unto hardship, and his wealth shall not avail him when he perishes. In the first verse, actually you could say in the first two verses, there's an omission of the direct object. So, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَى is describing by the night as it enshrouds, but what is it enshrouding? Right? And so that direct object is not mentioned. وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا تَجَلَّى, right? And by the night as it discloses, or here the translation's somewhat different. But we talked about these two words, yaghsha and tajalla. I'm going to go into it also a little bit more today. The object of the verb is missing. So it can refer to different things. It can be seen as referring to the world, that the night enshrouds the whole world, the earth, or the night itself enshrouds and covers the day. Also that the day can, as we said before, it manifests, everything that's on earth. That's one of the meanings. But looking at the word yaghsha, right? And Imam Ibn Ajiba also mentions this. He says, in the night when it covers, he says when it covers the sun, and he says this is similar to how it was referred to in Surah Al-Shams, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا, right? That's the fourth ayah of Surah Al-Shams, in the night when it covers it, and that's one of the meanings, is that when the night covers the sun. Or everything that it conceals with its darkness. Imam al-Qushayri said that when it covers the horizon and what is between the sky and the earth, concealing it with darkness. And the root of yaghshaha, or yaghsha, is ghashiyah, and that is to cover, wrap up, conceal, veil, and shroud. It can also mean to come, descend, overcome, and overwhelm, to be dark. Ghashyan is unconsciousness, fainting and swooning. Ghashiyah, right, which is also a surah that we covered, is calamity, misfortune, disaster. It causes one to faint. It covers a person's capacities, stupor. And you can compare this, right, with another ayah in the Qur'an, right? So here it says, وَاللَّيْلِ, now twice we've seen it, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا. So ghashya is a jalali term. It's like not gentle, it's not soft. It's like it covers, it overwhelms, it comes at once. There's a sense of power that one feels from this way of describing the night. Now, who is the address in this surah? Right, it's the Quraysh who don't believe, right? Because there's a comparison between the paths of the people who believe and the people who don't believe. This is a Meccan surah, so the audience is the Qurayshi community at that time, the disbelievers. And so this is something that is meant to wake people up or shake people up in order to wake people up. Now, elsewhere in the Qur'an, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى. Right? In this ayah, It's as by the night, or the night when it settles. So saja and yaghshaha are two different ways of describing the night. The night when it settles, sometimes it describes it as like Maghrib time turning into Isha time, right? And it's like that. We talked about it actually in the beginning of the assignment, is how like it gently creeps upon you until all of a sudden it's there. You know, it's not this overwhelming thing. And so the addressee in this ayah, wal-layli idha saja, is in this surah, is actually the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you notice how there is a jamali description of the night when the one that's being spoken to is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You can compare this, just the way that Allah is describing one of his signs depending on who the audience is. And then you have the word nahar, which comes up a lot. And, loosely translated, it's daytime, dawn until dusk. Some say that it's the entire yom of 24 hours in the day. And the word nahara means to flow copiously, like a river, right? So the nahar is something, the day that just flows copiously through the, through the time until it's over. And then from the root of tajalla, are different meanings. I want to share some of the meanings that come from the same root. To clean, polish, make clear, plain, clarify. To throw light upon, to reveal, unveil, disclose, be brilliant. And that's why here it says by the radiant day, and in the study Qur'an it says by the day as it discloses, because it actually has both meanings within the root. It has the emphasis of revealing and showing something, making it plain, but also throwing light upon it, and through that making it plain. And to be brilliant, to distinguish, to manifest, appear, show, come out, or be manifested. Okay, so I'm going to skip that. I wrote something, I don't understand what I wrote. So now looking at by the radiant day, or by the day, and when it appears is also a way to describe it. Ida tajalla is like when it comes out, when it appears, when it becomes manifest. And Imam Ibn Ajiba, he says, refers to appearance or brightening or becomes clear. وَمَا خَلَقَ الذَّكَرَ وَالْأُنثَى, by his creation of male and female. And it can also be translated, and his creation of the male and the female. Meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Imam Ibn Ajiba says this, who created the male and the female from everything that reproduces from one droplet of water. And it was said that this refers to actually, here, وَمَا خَلَقَ الذَّكَرَ وَالْأُنثَى is a reference to Adam and Eve. And the word ma has the meaning of min, like that all humanity come from Adam and Eve. It can also be read as who created the male and female, so referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who created the two genders. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says in Surah Ali Imran, وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنثَى, and the male is not like the female. And in that tafsīr of that verse, it actually refers to how motherhood is something that a man cannot do. And specifically the role that Maryam alayhi salam was created for was something that, her mother had made an oath, that she had dedicated the child in her womb at that time to be in the service of Allah, and actually in the masjid, or in the place of worship at that time. And but the masjid was a place that only had men. Sound familiar? So so then when she has the baby, she's shocked. She's shocked because she's like, I made an oath, so I thought I was going to have a son, right? But the role that Maryam alayhi salam was going to play was something that a son could never play, which was to be the mother of Isa alayhi salam. And she also then became the first woman to be, she was raised in the masjid, but she was the first woman who was given dedicated, like, private space in the masjid in her time. So she had a mihrab in the masjid. She had a specific place of prayer that was hers, and it was her spot in the masjid that that she would worship in. So there is something also in terms of the sign of the male and the female. It shows the, in terms of the signs of the day and the night, as well as the God signs in the male and the female, and sort of the differences even between both, but yet both are a completion of the other, right? Like the night completes the day completes the night. And just one of the things that I remember in particular learning about that stayed with me, there was a retreat many years ago. I've shared this before many times, but I think it bears sharing again, was how there are, aside from the fact that there's two genders, there's the male and the female, there's also these metaphysical principles that are spiritual principles. Some of them are considered feminine principles and some of them are considered masculine principles. And that every male and every female has both feminine and masculine principle. Right? So I'm a female, but I have feminine principle and I have masculine principle, and that's actually part of being human. And then there's a male, and he has masculine principle and feminine principle, and that's actually part of being male. And in the female, the feminine principles may exist, may be more, right? But it doesn't mean that a woman is only supposed to have feminine principle. She's not a complete woman unless she has masculine principle. And similarly, the male, he's not supposed to just have masculine metaphysical principles. He's not a complete man unless he has the feminine principles, metaphysical principles as well. But each one of these principles have a positive and a negative. Okay, so so this is, I think, really interesting, is that there is, these are, again, we're not talking about male and female, we're talking about metaphysical, spiritual principles. So the positive masculine principle, for example, it activates truth. You could say the masculine principle in general is one that activates. Okay, it's activating something. It's an active, it's more of an active, like the way that you understand it. For example, they'll say that when the rain is pouring down, that is positive masculine principle. When the earth is being soaked by the rain, and then because of that, it's able to nurture seeds and grow plants, that's positive feminine principle. The plants growing, positive masculine principle, right? But so they always they always are one is always reflecting the other, is always reflecting the other. In that way, they come right at, they're completed through the other right after it, as far as principles go. So as an example, going back to the male and the female, like in terms of spiritual qualities, the positive masculine principle activates truth. The negative masculine principle rejects truth. So rejection being something that's active. It's not, to reject truth is not a passive thing. It is an active thing. Someone has to actively go out and deny something that is true, knowing that it's true, right? That's a negative masculine principle. It can also activate falsehood, right? And that stubbornness that I will not desist on activating falsehood. That's masculine. That's negative masculine principle. There's a joke, I will share it for after class. It has to do with Dave Chappelle. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about, but we'll save it for after class. Positive feminine principle is not active. It is, I don't want to call it passive either, but it's receptive is a better term. It's a receptive principle. So it nurtures and harnesses and receives truth. That's positive feminine principle. So as an example, listening is a positive feminine principle. Is someone who can listen, really listen to someone else. Negative feminine principle is to nurture and harness and accept falsehood. So that shows up as cowardice, right? Like someone who lacks the courage to because they know it's falsehood, but they're harnessing it, they're accepting it. So that's cowardice, and that's negative feminine principle. Can men be cowards? Yes. if a man is a coward, he's not reflecting toxic masculinity. He's actually reflecting negative feminine principle. Right? Can a woman reject truth and activate falsehood? Yes, she can. Just watch Fox News. That is not, a negative feminine trait. That's actually a negative masculine trait. Right? Similarly, can a woman activate truth? Yes, she can. And that's courage, and that's positive masculine principle. So long as the principles, whether they are male or female, within the male or female, exist and at a positive level, it brings out the best in that gender. All right? It doesn't make them less a woman if they're activating truth. Okay? And it doesn't make a man less a man if he's like listening to people when they are talking to him. And, like the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, as an example, is someone who was a wonderful listener. And so that's a positive feminine principle trait. And there's much more that can be said about that. But just looking at وَمَا خَلَقَ الذَّكَرَ وَالْأُنثَى, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the male and the female. And I know that gender is such a controversial subject today. It really wasn't when I was a kid. Like there was only male and female. There wasn't a spectrum. There wasn't like what the discourse on it today is. And I think when I first learned about metaphysical spiritual principles as it relates to the male and female, it actually, for me, I found it very healing because there's things that people think there's stereotypes we have about gender, right? But the measurement of whether or not something is good or bad is like, how does it measure up with God, right? And these principles are all connected to truth, the relationship they have with truth, or goodness even. So as an example, when a woman cooks good food in the kitchen, right? Which principle is that? What was that? No, it's positive masculine. She's activating. She's in a creative mode. Yeah. So there's so many things that are like that. SubhanAllah, that yeah. We could have a whole conversation afterwards, but what I think about in terms of for ourselves is how do we relate to truth, right? When it comes to, are we a people who are able to harness truth? So for example, someone listens to the truth and from someone else that's going through a difficult time. The natural response for someone whose heart is healthy is to have empathy, right? To actually feel what that other person is going through but then to show compassion, which we usually associate, again, that is a feminine trait because women do that, but that's actually still positive masculine principle because compassion is active. It's not passive, or it's not receptive. It's an active thing. Pregnancy is receptive, right? It is the woman nurtures and nourishes even her bones and her blood and everything. The baby takes from all the vitamins of her body. So that is positive feminine principle. So anyways, these things are just amazing to me in terms of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given both the male and female, in order to be a complete man, a healthy man, a strong man even, he needs both positive feminine principle and positive masculine principle. In order for a woman to be a healthy, strong woman, she needs positive feminine principle and positive masculine principle. And it just may be that because of the two genders, really, and the differences within them, that she may have more of the feminine and the man has more of the masculine. But it doesn't mean that they cannot share in many of the same qualities. And in fact, they should, again, as spiritual principles. Okay, sorry, that was a little bit of a tangent, more than what I had written. Let's get back to it. But somewhat connected, actually, even. Inna sa'yakum lashatta. The ways you take differ greatly. or how did we translate it before in the study of Qur'an, was truly your endeavors are diverse. Now we also, going back to the endeavors, right? The sa'i, we've talked a lot about sa'i before in terms of the clear image of that is Safa and Marwa. When Hajar alayhi salam runs between Safa and Marwa, she's running towards something, she's making an effort, she's striving. So the ways we strive differ greatly. Now, one can reflect on this in terms of the night and the day, and how the striving even in the day and in the night are different. And you can look at the male and the female and different kinds of striving that the male and the female do. And also going back to this is this idea that that He created, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually repeats this in the Qur'an, that He created the two, the zawjain, male and female. And He also, it's described in the Qur'an as being azwaj, mates from a single soul. And so there's an outward polarity of created forms, right? In terms of, but in reality they came from a single soul. Like the male and the female actually came from one soul initially. There's an outward polarity of created forms, while the remainder of the surah refers to the inner spiritual polarity between those who reverence the truth and those who deny it. There's also an indication that the final ends of both males and females are not determined by their gender, but by the degree of their reverence. Right? So then, like the fact that there's a spiritual equality, right? And so it's not that the female has a higher level in Jannah or the male has a higher level in Jannah. That's not what we're referring to in terms of inna sa'yukum lashatta. It's actually whoever is closest to God. In Surah Al-Hujurat, O mankind, truly we created you from a male and a female, and we made you peoples and tribes that you may come to know one another. Surely the most noble of you before God are the most reverent of you. So between whether it's male or female, or whether it's the different races and tribes that exist in the world, the idea of who is better, if we want to use that, it doesn't have to do with skin color or race. It doesn't have to do with language. It doesn't have to do with even being male or female. It has to do with the one who is most reverent of God. So now when you look at inna sa'yukum lashatta, be you male or female, right? Your sa'i, your endeavors are different, are diverse. And the word sa'i can be taken as a synonym for doing or acting, like the amal that people do. People work for either redemption or perdition, and that there is no in between. That's what's one of the notes from Imam al-Shawkani. But just, very simply, in this life, everyone gets tired doing something, right? Everyone gets tired doing something. Some people are tired doing terrible things and for terrible reasons, serving no one but themselves or their egos. And others, they tire for the sake of God. They will exhaust themselves in His service or in the service of His creation, and that's their sa'i. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes, one of the words that Allah describes in the Qur'an in terms of like just the imagery is fastabiqul khairat, like race with one another, not against one another, but with one another, towards good deeds, towards good things, right? So the running in our lives should be towards things that are pleasing to God. And you can compare this to the rat race, because we might see our neighbors also running. We might see people in this around us that they're busy and they're exhausted in their busyness, and they're not bad people per se. Like we don't, nothing like that. But it's like we're gonna be exhausted anyways, right? لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. Like we're gonna be, or there's something that's gonna be in this life that's gonna wear us out. It might as well be something that draws us closer to God. It might as well be something that we're rewarded for. It might as well be something that there's going to be a blessing in, versus exhausting ourselves to just entertain ourselves for a little bit. It's selfish reasons. People can plan all kinds of recreational activities that are exhausting, and it gives temporary pleasure. And afterwards, they come back from their vacation, and they need a vacation from their vacation, right? And they're like, I can't believe I have to go back to work. And that's one of the sad aspects of like investing in happiness over, investing in pleasure over happiness. Investing in pleasure over happiness is that, on the one hand, the one who continues to invest in like temporary pleasures will tire themselves out, but come up feeling really empty and unnourished and unfulfilled and feeling like they need more of whatever that pleasure was. Whereas the one whose their sa'i is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's a blessing and a, you could say even an ease, which comes up in the surah, that Allah places for them, and a meaning that they get to enjoy from that allows them to have a kind of fulfillment that pleasures don't provide, right? A kind of enjoyment and nourishment of the soul that pleasures by themselves don't provide. So our endeavoring on this earth is very, very diverse. You know, what are we getting tired for, and who are we getting tired for, right? Who are we getting tired for? And even in this way, like I think the who is important. Is it good to serve your mom? Yes, it's absolutely good to serve your mom. Is it good to serve your neighbors? Yes. Is it good to serve your spouses? Yes. Is it good to serve your children and help your children? Yes. But insofar as we're getting tired for people, if that's where the end of the intention is, a person may feel like, oh, I'm just a martyr for the cause. They feel like a sense of suffering, right? And insofar as that person is connected to their remembrance of God, right? Like that this is something that God is pleased with, is like birrul walidain, for example, just pleasing your parents for the sake of Allah, or raising your children in the best way that you possibly can, or just being kind to neighbors who could care less, like for the sake of Allah. Like so long as it's for the sake of Allah, the person doesn't feel in the same way that they're in a state of suffering, right? Because it's for Allah. The who of why they're tired is actually God. It's not the person in front of them. And if the person in front of them rejects their service, right? So sometimes parents get very old, and or elderly, like grandparents and things, and they may be unhealthy sometimes in different ways, like in their, like it's the breakdown of the end of the senior years, where sometimes mentally there's different challenges they didn't have before, and the person may be in a constant state of rejection of the service, right? Like, don't visit me, don't, like, they'll just say things, and it's and we know it's not an easy thing to witness for people who have seen their elderly parents or grandparents go through that phase, but you serve them anyways without feeling like, why are you doing this to me? Because if you take it personally, right, it was about them. And the closer you are in the relationship, the harder it is to not take it personally. I'll repeat that. The closer you are in the relationship, the harder it is to not take it personally. To actually center the entire intention to be about God, and for the sake of God, but through this act of service to the closest people to you. And there's a relationship to that as well that we've talked about before in terms of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared the heart of Sayyidah Aisha, right? In terms of even her relationship with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had to be anchored in God first, right? Her relationship with God first. So for who are we striving for, and what are we striving for? And again, everyone gets tired. If anyone who has worked in corporate America will find managers and directors who stay until odd hours of the night working, and they have a reason to be there. Whatever their reason is keeping them there. And similarly, there's people who are on the front lines of, like, distributing humanitarian aid to starving Palestinians, and that's a different kind of tired, right? And it's a different intention. It's a different, what they're getting tired for is different, and who they're getting tired for is different. وَصَدَّقَ بِالْحُسْنَى, who testifies to goodness. And the word saddaqa is like an affirmation, but you can also translate it as, it's not just an attest to what is, here the bil-husna, husna is not just like goodness. It's what's most beautiful. It's al-husna. It's definitive. And in the tafsīr, there's a discussion about what is actually the most beautiful. They testify to the most beautiful. And it's not that, one of the meanings can be the testimony of La ilaha illallah, that the most beautiful is actually the reality of God. But it's also like being true to the most beautiful. It's not just a testimony, but a disposition of the heart, a trueness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Qur'an, مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ رِجَالٌ صَدَقُوا مَا عَاهَدَ اللَّهَ عَلَيْهِ. So from the believers, there are rijal. Now the rijal is a word that can mean men or women, interestingly. So even though it's plural, male, masculine, it can mean it can refer to a man or a woman. For some of the believers, there are those who were true, صدقوا ما عاهد الله عليه, to the covenant that they made with God, or to the oaths that they made with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's وَصَدَّقَ بِالْحُسْنَى, it's an affirmation, but it's a disposition of the heart, a trueness, a sincerity that is encompassing. And so again, what is al-husna? What is most beautiful? And it's also repeated in verse 9, can be the testimony of faith, La ilaha illallah, or it can simply be belief in God. Others also see it as a reference to paradise, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes paradise as jaza al-husna, so as the beautiful reward. But it can also be seen as a reference to Allah Himself, for as several verses attest, lahu al-asma'ul husna, like to Allah belongs the most beautiful names. I think we skipped a verse. Did we not skip a verse? We did. Yes, we did. فَأَمَّا مَنْ أَعْطَى وَاتَّقَى. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so there are paths. People take different paths. Now the next thought after the fact that people have diverse paths, different ways in which they exhaust themselves and endeavor, is the example of people who endeavor in a good way. Their example is, there is the one who gives, who is mindful of God, right? So a'ta, this idea of giving, and who has taqwa, as was mentioned earlier, is the one who's closest to Allah, is the one who is the most reverent of Him. So Ali ibn Abi Talib, he related that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, there is no one among you except that his place is registered in either the garden or the fire. So someone asked, O Messenger of God, then what of our works, of our amal? And then the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, perform works, like do your deeds, do your good deeds. And then he said, everyone is eased unto that for which he was created. Kullun muyassarun lima khuliqa lah. And then he recited verses 5 through 10 of this surah. So verses 5 through 10 starts with, there is the one who gives, who is mindful of God, who testifies to goodness. We shall smooth his way towards ease. There is the one who is miserly, who is self-satisfied, who denies goodness, or that which is most beautiful, and we shall smooth his way towards hardship. So these are the 5 verses that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ cites when describing to people that to do your good works and to know that everyone is eased unto that for which he was created. So each person has a specific destiny. There's a general destiny of paradise and hellfire. There's a specific destiny in people, Allah making certain acts eased towards us specifically. So, and there's a good amount of discussion on that. Imam al-Zamakhshari, he says about this hadith, this part of the hadith, saying, we will make it amiable to him and grant him success until obedience to God becomes the easiest and simplest of things for him. As in his saying, and this is also in Surah Al-An'am, فَمَن يُرِدِ اللَّهُ أَن يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. Whomsoever God wishes to guide, he expands his chest for submission, for Islam. Imam Ibn Ajiba, he says about, but as for him who gives, he says his wealth's rights, and then is reverent or fears. This person fears the forbidden things, or he not fears as in he's afraid of them, but he stays away from those things which are forbidden from Allah, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in terms of him giving his wealth's rights, like wealth has a right upon it, what is the right that is in our wealth? فَأَمَّا مَنْ أَعْطَى وَاتَّقَى. Zakat, yes. When we're giving zakat, it's very important to know that we're not giving sadaqah. This is not a charity that we're just being generous with, and we're like, look, I'm going to give my zakat because I want to be generous. This is like, it's not a suggested amount. There's an actual amount, and it is wajib, right? And it is an obligation to give the amount that is due, and it is the wealth of others that is mixed within our wealth. So when we're giving it, we're literally just returning the wealth to its proper owners. It's mixed within our wealth, so it's our job to make sure we remove the wealth that doesn't belong to us in the first place and give it back to people that it belongs to. That's how we need to see zakat. Nowadays, people, many times they'll ask if something, and I've talked about it before, forgive me if I'm like a broken record, but is this project zakat eligible? And it'll be like some new addition to the masjid or something, like some new piece of building to add. And zakat goes to human beings. Okay, so if you want to, there's different categories of zakat. All of the categories are human beings. It goes from the hand of a human to the hand of a human. It is not for buildings. And even when zakat is used in Islamic schools, the way that it's being received, it's for the children, for example, that are going to that school. It is not going to the building of the school. And so it has to be spent on people. Now, are there not fatwas in the 1980s that say, that only came out in the 1980s, that said that you can build mosques and things like that with it? Yes, there are fatwas that exist like that. And, kullu mujtahidin musib. Every mujtahid is musib. In the sense that if their fatwa was sound and good, then they get 2 rewards. And if their fatwa is incorrect, they get 1 reward. The thing is, the general understanding of zakah is, while many other aspects of our deen, you choose the way of what's easiest and what's most flexible for the time and place and context. Certain aspects, the legal approach to it is, you're very strict with it. You're extremely strict with it, and it's the opposite. It's like, for example, an understanding from some of the madhahib when it comes to how to pray is al-aslu fil ibadat al-hurma. Is that if it's ritual worship, it's actually forbidden unless expressly prescribed. Right? And then another one is tawaqquf. One position is it's either al-hurma, so your starting point is forbidden, unless it's expressly prescribed. The other starting point is tawaqquf, which is we're stopping at what has been prescribed, but we're not going beyond it. Right? We're stopping at what the revelation has shown us. Now, al-aslu fil mu'amalat. We have some Islamic law people in here. For interpersonal relations is what? Is ibaha. Yeah. So al-aslu, for people and dealings with people, the asl is actually everything is allowed except what has been expressly forbidden. Like how we deal with each other, it's all okay as long as it's staying away from whatever has been forbidden. So that's really flexible. That's really flexible. So when it comes to what is due between me and God, that's pretty strict, right? In terms of ritual worship. There's non-ritual worship, which is life. Right? You want to do everything for the sake of Allah. That's flexible too. We're talking about ritual worship. Where does zakat fall? Is it mu'amalat or is it ibadat? It's ibadat. Yep. So strictness is the way that you deal with it. It's not like, let me find a loophole here. It's the opposite of that. It's let me stay as close to the letter of and the intent and the of what's been prescribed as possible. Wallahu alam. I could say a lot more, but we have Maghrib to pray soon, so inshallah we'll move on. But this aspect of the one who gives, and Imam Ibn Ajib is saying his wealth's rights. So there are rights that the wealth of others is mixed with our wealth, and it's very important to know that this is not my money. This is their money. All I'm doing is returning it back to them. It's not mine to begin with. It's mixed in my money, but so it's my job to simply return it. Okay, now back to وَالصَّدَّقَ بِالْحُسْنَى, which we talked about. Imam Ibn Ajib, he says, Al-Husna is Iman itself, or the kalima, which is La ilaha illallah, or the religion itself, which is Islam, or the best reward, which is paradise. And so this attesting or belief is to see that what Allah has promised us will actually lead to it, and there's no thought of doubt that enters. That like this is a sincere and full belief that what Allah has promised us is coming, and the things that He has said leads to that is also true. Like it's an acceptance of the divine promise. We will ease His way towards ease. فَسَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْيُسْرَى. God desires ease for you. God desires ease for you, and He does not desire hardship for you. وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. That Allah has not placed in this religion itself hardship. So that's another way for us to also think about deen in general, the whole way of life, the iman, Islam, ihsan, is that the purpose of all of this is not to make our lives difficult. It's to actually bring ease. And in iman, Islam, ihsan, the religion itself is not a hardship. Life is a hardship. The life of this world is a hardship. You know, we've been created in trials and tribulations, and sometimes doing the things can be hard, but the actual thing itself is not hard. As a very clear example, it is not hard to pray. It takes 5 minutes to pray, but like to get yourself to do it, given the different circumstances, can be hard. I would say like the physical act of wearing a headscarf, like to pick up a scarf, put on my head, that's not necessarily hard. But if you're living in a racist society where everyone's going to judge you and they're going to not give you a good job and they're going to look down on you and mistreat you because of your hijab, that can be very hard, right? So aspects of the deen itself is not supposed to be hard, but life itself can be hard. And then that, practicing your deen in the middle of that is where the struggle lies, but not in the religion itself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions also in the Qur'an, in Surah Talaq, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِ يُسْرًا. And whosoever reverences God, He will appoint ease for his affairs. Now, here, this going back to the narration of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ about كُلٌّ مُيَسَّرٌ لِمَا خُلِقَ لَهُ, that each person is like ease towards that which they were created. We will ease him towards ease is another way that you could see this. And so Allah will prepare for people that He has the ease, the second ease in the verse. Lil yusra is with an alif lam. So it's like the ease, right? It's not just an ease, it's the ease. So one of the interpretations is the ease is paradise. And so what Allah does for the person who is destined for paradise is He eases the acts that would allow that person to enter paradise by. Imam Ibn Ajib says, so we will prepare for him the path that leads to comfort and ease, such as entering paradise and its principles. Ibn Atiyah said, its meaning is we will make it clear to him that we have made it easy for him through the good deeds he gradually does, and the inevitability of making it easy was in Allah's knowledge from pre-eternity. another thing that's linguistically that Imam Ibn Ajiba adds is this language is used even as in terms of horses. So he says he made the horse easy, meaning he saddled it and bridled it. So essentially, like when you think about the person who goes to paradise, the horse is also interesting that they use that example, because the horse is in like metaphor is usually referring to the ego, right? So the horse got eased in the this is bad because it's in translation, is like the horse got tamed. He was able to be controlled and move in the right direction. And so the person who is eased towards something, they are, the wild nafs in them, the wild stallion in them gets tamed, and now they're straight. وَأَمَّا مَنْ بَخِلَ وَاسْتَغْنَى, there is the one who is miserly, who is self-satisfied. It's also the stingy one, right? The bakhil, man bakhila, is like the verbal translation. As for one who is miserly and deems himself beyond need, right? His wealth doesn't help him. His wealth, he doesn't spend his wealth in the way of goodness, and he considers himself free of needing God. When it says free of need, it's like specifically he considers himself like he doesn't need God from above, and with his wealth, he's not going to help the poor people from below. That's below him, And so he's indifferent to what it is between himself and Allah the Most High, as if he does not need him, nor does he fear him. Or he's simply satisfied with the desires of this world instead of having any care or concern about the hereafter. So he's just like self-satisfied. And that self-satisfaction with his own wealth and with what he has, is makes him not even think about God in terms of the hereafter, and in terms of this world, he's stingy and miserly with others. وَكَذَّبَ بِالْحُسْنَى, who denies al-husna, right? And again, we discussed what the different possible meanings of al-husna is. So صَدَّقَ بِالْحُسْنَى is, if صَدَّقَ بِالْحُسْنَى is to affirm and to be true and to be sincere towards, then كَذَّبَ is to rebel against, turn away from, be in denial of. And again, al-husna can mean the reward of the garden, the reality of the garden itself, or the reality of God, or all three of these. فَسَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْعُسْرَى, so we shall ease his way towards hardship, or smooth his way towards hardship, or difficulty. And Imam Ibn Ajiba, he says, that is towards the characteristic that leads to difficulty and hardship, such as entering the fire, and the causes that causes a person to enter the fire. And then he has something very interesting. He says because he has chosen it. The person has chosen it. So then all of the deeds that ease a person towards that are made, all of the deeds that would cause the fire become, the path towards those things becomes smooth and easy for him. What's the beginning of him choosing that? كَذَّبَ بِالْحُسْنَى. He is in total denial, turning away from rebelliousness of the truth. Not just the truth, it's al-husna. He says also, Fakhruddin al-Razi said, everything that leads to comfort and praiseworthy matters, that is ease, and it describes all acts of obedience. So that refers to those who are doing, are eased towards the ease. And everything that leads to fatigue and ruin, and that is difficulty, and it describes all acts of disobedience. The reason why I thought this was amazing is that they're describing bad deeds as difficulties, and they're describing good deeds as ease. But many times it seems like bad deeds seem to be quite easy, and it seems like good deeds seem to be quite hard, right? So there's something also to this. Anyone want to poke at it a bit? How are good deeds, what's this paradigm shift? Good deeds that normally people find to be difficult, there is ease towards ease. Right? Bad deeds normally people find to be very easy, ease towards difficulty. Mm-hmm. 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 Like the return on good deeds is ease in this life and the next. The return on bad deeds is difficulties in this life and the next, right? So, because when you do the good deeds, there's a blessing. Blessings in and of themselves will bring something in this life, not just something in the next life. So yeah, it's this. The amal is what it is, but it's like what comes right after that for kind of like forever. If it's a bad deed, of course, if someone repents, then that changes it. But the idea of looking at the good deed as ease is also, I think, a beautiful paradigm shift. Like this is, if someone told you to do something hard, right, you don't want to do it. But if someone said, do this thing that's going to bring a lot of ease in this life to you in the next life, that's like that linguistic difference is so significant for us. Giving charity is ease, right? Helping your neighbor is ease. Being kind to people who are not kind to you is ease, right? Because it's going to be bringing eases upon eases for doing these things. Very, very, mashallah, beautiful. And then you also have this idea that inna ma'al usri yusra, is that in the difficulties of this life, with the difficulties of this life, inside those difficulties, Allah also places eases, right? And and that often has to do with how Allah carries the heart of the person going through it. And the one who has ease on the outside, or you could say like what seems to be wealth, again, we're talking about inna sa'yukum lashatta, the one who has won the rat race of this life, and their heart is not being carried, and they have all kinds of addictions and health issues. And I mean, this, like, if you, what is it, both Instagram, YouTube, they constantly just want to show the sad lives of people who used to be famous or still are famous, right? And like just bad news about them. I don't know, but it's like it pops up. I shouldn't look at it because it's all probably popping up because I'm looking at it. But the point is that like all of your wealth and fame, and you're miserable. You're miserable. Your heart is not being carried, right? And someone else living in the worst circumstances, and their heart is being carried. And so, inna ma'al usri yusra is also, again, that the religion itself is not hard, right? The religion itself is in itself ease. This life can have its difficulties and tests, but it's with like having that sincerity towards Allah, that saddaqa bil husna, that with the hardship also comes ease. And his wealth will not avail him. وَمَا يُغْنِي عَنْهُ مَالُهُ إِذَا تَرَدَّى. As he falls. His wealth will not help him as he falls. It will not benefit him at all, Imam Ibn Ajiba mentions, when he perishes, and from the verb radda, or falls into the pit of his own grave or into the depths of hellfire. And then he says, God forbid. Like, meaning may Allah protect us all. And just as there is reciprocity when turning to God in repentance, right? When Allah turns towards us, so we turn towards him in tawbah, right? So too is there reciprocity when people are turning away from God intentionally in disobedience, right? Then he turns away from them. And that hardship for many is glossed. Imam Shawkani says with the word evil, like the way towards more and more evil or bad deeds is smoothed. And we see this clearly in the life of tyrants. Like when you think what worse thing can you come up with, then they come up with another worse thing. We don't want to ask that question anymore. But like, it's like how you have to be creative to think of these kinds of evils. Like this is not in activating, falsehood. You have to like spend time on it. It doesn't naturally come to mind. Again, it can be, in the study Qur'an mentions, this can be taken to imply that when people disbelieve and commit evil deeds, God opens the way for them to commit further evil, and it becomes increasingly difficult to turn back, as implied by the diverse nature of good and evil deeds alluded to in verse 4. Also in verse 11, what will his wealth avail him when he perishes? Again, perishes can be taken to mean when he dies or when he enters the fire. Again, it's that the one reality that no one can escape is that everyone's going to die. Everyone is going to, if taradda means in terms of fall means to simply perish, no one's getting out of here alive, right? We're all going to die. And so the reality of death is like the great equalizer, right? That all human beings will eventually, no matter how many years they live on this life, they will go. And that is one of the comforts for the believers and one of the discomforts for the tyrants. For the believers, everyone eventually is meant to die, and their time is appointed. And for the one who, like for the martyrs in Palestine, for example, and it's we cannot bear to see the pictures and the images of what's happening there, but it is the only comfort we have is to know that their eternity is ease upon ease upon ease. As Habib Umar described it, it's like experiencing one Eid after another Eid after another Eid. And for those who are doing that to them and they die without repenting, like the people doing this are going to die. Netanyahu is not going to live forever, right? Trump is not going to live forever. People don't live forever. So what's the recompense for this temporary moment of like what you thought was victory is eternal difficulties. You know, the way of these were people that had rebelled against al-Husna. And so this is like, again, this idea that that what happens after the act is what defines it, right? Not the moment itself. And martyrdom, subhanAllah, is something that for its appearance is absolute tragedy and horrific, but its inner reality is these are the people who will attain the highest reaches of paradise. These are the people that everyone else in paradise will be jealous of, literally envious of. So, and there's more to say on that, but it is time for Maghrib, so we will close here. I have the allegorical commentary, but inshallah we'll start with that next week. Oh, for the assignment, I'd written it down here. The assignment for this week was to actually spend time after the prayers thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for every ease that you have, that anything good you were able to do, right? Kullun muyassarun lima khuliqa lah. Whatever Allah eased for you. If you prayed on time, thank Him that you prayed on time. If you did, try to like not look at those good deeds as like, wow, look what a sticking your thumb in a plum and saying what a good boy am I, but more like looking at the good deeds as what Allah has eased for you, as from His mercy, from His blessing, from His generosity, and just spend time thanking Allah for those good things that He's eased you towards. Like take note of it, right? Just appreciate even simple things you don't think about normally, that alhamdulillah, they're parts of this deen that Allah made easy for you to do. And for every person, Allah made different things easy for them, other things a little bit more challenging. So there's whatever it is, like just after each prayer, spend some time. And you could do it when you're saying alhamdulillah, 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 to praise Allah for those things. You could do it as simply just thanking Allah for those things. Either way, however you would like to show your gratitude and glorify Allah for those things is up to you. But after the prayer times, specifically the things, the khair that Allah has eased us towards, giving Him the acknowledgement and the credit, and credit is due towards Him for those good things that He eased. And we'll close it inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma wafiqna lima tuhibbu wa tarda waj'alna min abidika su'ada وأمتنا على كلمة الهدى علمنا ما ينفعنا ووفقنا للعمل بما علمتنا به واجعل ما نحن فيه خالصا مخلصا لوجهك الكريم آمين يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل تجمعنا هذا تجمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا بعده تفرقا معصوما لا شقيا منا ولا محروما وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. O God, give us success to attain what you love and are pleased with. Make us amongst your felicitous servants. Allow us to die on the statement of guidance. Teach us what will benefit us and give us the success to act upon what you have taught us. Make that in which we are engaged pure and devoted to your noble face. Ameen, O Lord of the worlds. O God, make this gathering of ours a gathering enveloped in mercy, and our parting thereafter, a parting of our sins purged and forgiven. Not one of us wretched or deprived. And peace and blessings be upon our Master Muhammad and upon his noble family, companions, and followers. Ameen.